she's staring at.
Jungle Hunt, released in 1983 for the Atari 2600 video computer system and based on the 1982 Taito arcade game of the same name, places you in the role of a jungle hunting explorer by the name of Sir Dudley, at least in the Atari ports. And you must survive 4 treacherous rounds of jungle hunting action to rescue your lady friend Penelope from the inhabitants of this cannibalistic jungle. First round has you swinging vines, like Tarzan, which is funny since the original version of Jungle Hunt, dubbed Jungle King, had you playing as a Tarzan-type character. The arcade game even had a little Tarzan yell to start the game off, before they had to change it for copyright reasons and such. So you press the button to leap with proper timing to catch the vines and not fall into the abyss below, which will cost you a life. After leaping a few vines, you dive into round 2, which has you swimming across a roaring river filled with hungry crocodiles that you could fend off with what is supposed to be a knife, but with these Atari graphics it almost looks like you're punching the bastards, which actually makes for a better optic. Just make sure you go up to the surface to catch a breath or else you'll drown. After that, it's off to the third round, which has you jumping over little boulders and dodging big boulders. You're constantly running during this round, and in order to stop in your tracks, you'll need to crouch, though you could pull back a bit to slow down. Unlike the arcade version, which has you climbing up a steep hill, here you're running along a straight, smooth path, which makes things easier, but not by much, especially in later rounds where the boulders tend to change their pattern a bit. After dodging a few boulders, you'll have to make your way past a couple cannibals, and once that's done, your lady friend will be waiting. Whatever time is left is added to your score, and you get to do the whole thing all over again, except things are slightly harder than before, which is par for the course with Atari. Jungle Hunt is a single-player game with 2 levels of difficulty that you could choose from. The game provides a fair bit of variety with its 4 rounds, putting the player in different trials to overcome. And control for these rounds work quite well. Simple to grasp. I mean, come on, look at what you're working with here. But it's also quite responsive. Gameplay is fairly straightforward in all rounds, and it's quite easy to figure out what you're supposed to do. The only real complaint that I have is that your knife attack during the second round is not clearly defined. The attack frame doesn't last very long, your range is fairly short, and the frame itself makes it difficult to tell whether you actually have an arm sticking out to do the actual stabbing. So trying to take on the crocs is a bit of a risk, but of course, if you don't trust your knifing skills, you could just rely on your swimming skills to survive the waters. Everything else in the game is par for the course. Jungle Hunt is also quite a slick-looking game, by 2600 standards at least. It might not match the arcade quality graphics, but it does a fair enough job of approximating the various on-screen characters and settings. And there's even a bit of parallax scrolling that comes into play during the running segments, which is something you wouldn't commonly find on the VCS. Sound effects are fairly minimal Atari quality sound effects, nothing out of the ordinary, although they do have the arcade starting jingle that plays at the start of each round, so that's nice to have and such. Overall, Jungle Hunt is a tightly made and highly enjoyable little game on the 2600 that does a fine enough job of replicating the arcade game to the home format within hardware constraints. The varied gameplay, tight controls, and overall challenge come together to create one of the more well-rounded games in the VCS library, if not one of its very best. Definitely a worthy addition to any 2600 library.